Hello and welcome to Crafting Unedited. My name is Sierra and today I'm going to show you how to sublimate onto a fuzzy blanket. So I ordered these really awesome super duper soft blankets from Heat Transfer Warehouse, and they are 100% polyester, so they sublimate really well. However, they have like this really fuzzy texture to them, so they can be a bit tricky when it comes to sublimating onto. So I wanted to show you guys how I did it and how I've been successful. So the first thing that you want to have is obviously the blanket. Clean, because it is white, clean, fresh, blowout paper, what am I thinking of? Parchment paper, craft paper, whatever you want to call it. I use parchment paper from Costco. Craft paper works also. And then you also want your transfer, some scissors, and some heat resistant tape, like so. Alrighty. I have all of my supplies except for scissors, so give me just 1 second. And scissors. And your heat press needs to be set at 400 or at least 385. I do 385 because my heat press runs hot. So I do 385 and 60 seconds. No more, no less, and it's worked great. So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do, other than having your heat press preheated, like heating while you do all of this other stuff, is to cut around the image that you're going to be pressing. The reason why you cut around it, you don't have to per se, but in my opinion you absolutely have to, and you absolutely should, for many of reasons. One, primarily, is because when you print, sometimes the ink from your printer will build up onto the edges right here, everywhere. Number two is sometimes the ink will also do this weird thing where it'll put random splotches of ink outside of the print area for whatever reason. Number three is because when you press, you're gonna get like a funky outline, especially with these blankets because of how soft and fuzzy they are. So cut around it and just save yourself a headache and a ruined product. And you don't have to be like super duper precise with it. You just very I forgot the word that I was trying to think of. Very generically, I can't think of the word, go around. The other thing that I learned very recently is that you need to let your prints dry. Like, you can hear my printer running in the background, and I have a lot of prints printing right now, and this was one of them. So what I did was I put it under the heat press for a couple of seconds to let it dry before I handled it. Reason being is because your hands can absorb some of the ink. Just gonna let that fall right there. And create ghosting. See, very generically cut around. But this avoids any of the ink that could have built up along the edges. Now, second thing you're gonna want to do is these have a small tag on them, very small, but I've been pressing in the bottom, well, in the corner opposite of the tag. Doesn't really matter, you do what you want, but you should also lint roll, and I don't have my lint roller, but it is what it is. Try to get all the fuzzies off, because as you can see, there's fuzzies flying everywhere, but you're gonna want to find your corner. Make sure that there's no extra fuzzies like that guy. And then you're gonna want to pre-press just very lightly. So I have my heat press, I'm gonna pull it up just a little bit, and then I'm gonna point the camera down so that you guys can see. But I lifted the pressure quite a bit so that it's not gonna create like a line on my blanket. I've already pressed a couple of these, so I have fuzzies on my pressing mat. And my pressing mat is hot. Just just trying to get the fuzzies off. Okay. Now I'm going to point the camera down so that you can see what I am doing. Maybe. Okay. And then gonna tilt you right here. Just like so. Okay. So you can see my press. You can see the tag of the blanket is down here. I'm pressing the corner. Not that it really matters. You also want to make sure that you're pressing on the outside of the blanket, not the inside. That's why I like to have the tag within sight. Alrighty, so just gonna align this on my press here to a general area of where I want my image to go. And I like to make sure that the fuzz, if you have a fuzzy blanket, is all going in one direction. That'll just make for much smoother transfer. So I just take the fuzzies and I take my hand and just kind of glide across it. Okay, and now we're just going to press for a very, very, very brief second, and I'm not even going to put the full pressure on. Just kind of let it hang there. 3, 4, 5, and then we lift. Now we have a very light press, which is all that we really need. You don't need anything too like super heavy pressure or anything like that. And then we're going to take our transfer, place it around about where we want. Again, trying to make sure that you have all your fuzzies in the same direction. And be careful, because if you shift your image too roughly, it will move those fuzzies and you'll have ink on one side, not the other side of the fuzz. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, now we're just going to get a couple pieces of tape here. If your blanket is thin, you will want to have a piece of blowout paper underneath as well to prevent it from bleeding your image from the, that was hot, bleeding through to the other side. I thought I had enough clearance, but I clearly did not. All right, so we've got the clean blowout paper. Gonna put this on top right here, and then we're gonna get to pressing. All right. Again, very light pressure. You don't need anything too substantial because you want to avoid any permanent press marks on your blanket. So there we go, 385 for 60 seconds. I'm going to check on my finger. It'll be all right. It's not too bad. It did hurt though. That was interesting. Alrighty, so remember a couple things. You want to tape your image into place primarily so that you have that grip when you lift your press. It doesn't go flying everywhere and create ghosting. You have to have the blowout paper, otherwise the ink's just going to go right onto your press, and then you're going to press something else, and then it's just going to be a big mess. And you want to use clean blowout paper. Perfect example is this blowout paper I was going to throw away, or am throwing away this morning. This paper I used on another blanket, and it has, I didn't notice it until I put it up against a white background, but it has some of the previous images ink on it, and if I would have transferred, or if I would have used that, that would have transferred onto the new blanket. We don't want that. Alrighty, and we have pressure. Now, when you lift the press, make sure to hold the bottom of your blanket, especially if it's a heavier one, so that it doesn't go sliding off of your press and creating a mess. Okay, and then we're going to pull this out so that I don't burn myself again. Okay, and we've got the blowout paper. Again, you can kind of see where it has Hallmark blanket. Typically, it's the darker colors that bleed through more dominantly. Whoop. tape will pull some of the fuzzy off, which I hate, but... And then these do transfer really, really well. I just have really good paper, and it doesn't even look like there was anything taken off of here, but clearly there was. All right, and then if you still get an outline where your image was, what I do is I take my finger and I just kind of like brush it up a little bit. Give it a little texture rising. You can also toss it in the dryer after about 24 to 48 hours, and that will lift any of the pressing marks that were placed because of pressing. You have to have some kind of pressure when you do these. You can't just kind of like let it float over. But see, I'm just taking my finger and creating some fuzzy texture. Whoops. Obviously, when you give it to whoever you're giving it to, you want to make sure that your image has its perfect. Alrighty, so you can also like, there we go. Look at, it's beautiful. Transfers so well. And then what I do to fold it so that you can gift it is edge to edge. And then, again, making sure that your image is on the outside. You can't see it, but the image is down there on the outside. And then you want to have a little bit of extra of the two edges on the outside. You'll see why in a second. And then you just take it all the way down to the bottom. And you fold it in half. I know this wasn't part of the video plan, but I figured if you're going to be gifting this, you're going to want to know how to make it look presentable. So you fold it in half, and then in half, and then lengthwise in half. But that little extra lip that you had at the bottom covers the bottom corner so that you don't have overlap. And then in half again, and there you have it. And then you just take your hand, and again, the same direction that you pressed it in, you want to make sure that you're showing. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love these blankets. They're super soft. I'm going to put you back up here so that you can see me and not half of me. Alrighty. So these blankets, I absolutely love them. Sorry, didn't mean to block you. They are from Heat Transfer Warehouse, like I said before. I will post a link in the description for you to get them. They are, if you get the exact ones that I post, they're $13.99, give or take. And I've seen these things go for 20 to 30 bucks at minimum a blanket. So you're going to make some sort of profit off of them. I did them solely for gifts this year, so I'm not making anything off of them but a smile on somebody's face, and that to me is well worth it. And then the tutorial to help you guys so that you guys can profit or gift, however you want to do it. Either way, that, my friends, is how you press a sublimation blanket, or how you sublimate onto a fuzzy blanket. I forgot what I was doing. Sublimate onto a fuzzy blanket, guys. They're super soft, they're very warm, and they're really good quality for $14. Posting that link down in the description. Make sure that you grab yourself a few. Alrighty, until next time, happy crafting.